Live video, so the recording starts. And so we're about to begin. It was supposed to rain this weekend, which would have been good, especially for the environment, but apparently the rain's not coming. So we'll be meeting tomorrow outside at the usual place, Bester Park, right around the corner from the physical location of Aikido San Jose on Martha Street. So 11:30 to 1, and those of you tuning in, okay. And those of you that watch this on video later, anyway, we were going over a bunch of things, just exactly, like we do a lot of work with, or I do a lot of work with that sort of motion. And I had a conversation yesterday with Robert Nadeau, and the whole sense of what came up with their various tracks. Okay, for example, your hanmi, your triangles a track. The circle of the blend is a track. The motion, oftentimes, the end of motion is a throwing motion or it's a pinning motion, is a track, triangle, circle, square. As we kind of go a little bit, the triangle has potentially a couple of tracks, kind of a circle within it. It's adaptable. It can go that way or that way. Okay, right? The square we've covered sometimes is very, very deceptive because Sensei talks about it as solidity, applied control, but he also refers to it in other ways. And one of the ways he refers to it is transformation. And so what transformation might be is just the ability to shift from track to track, track to track, track to track, track to track, track to track. So we do, I work on what we call the fire, water, center, circle changes. And those are, for example, here, this is the track that can shift. This is the track that can shift. This is the track that can shift, okay? And of course, I don't know those changes, so initially I'm working on learning the changes, right? But these are shifts in energy. Boom, 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 boom. If you miss like I did, you make some, put you on a different track. Sometimes, when you make a mistake, if you don't stop and freeze, you realize that opens up different possibilities. And so, oftentimes, we're working certain things like that's pretty chaotic. So, we're working the sense of let's just say a balance, which is the center, or converse to the balance, which is right to left, left to right. So those are pretty, sometimes people tend to have trouble with this one, or they lock onto this one. If I lock onto the center, okay, I can't do that. So I tend to right, left, left, right, and there's a balance in the middle, which is very fluid, allows me the ability to change, 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 change. For example, here, this is a particular thing, boom, changing tracks to, right? You're going from a light beam, boom, to a laser, boom. And certain other things, for example, like, move like a beam of light, fly like lightning, strike like thunder, boom, 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 boom. All right, so those are, we had this discussion yesterday, Nadeau Sensei and I, the sense of, initially you explore one track, right? And then you explore another track. And then you're able to shift tracks. All of a sudden, you're going this way, there's a freight train coming, okay? You get off the line, let the freight train go its way, all right? Conversely, you're going this way. And something opens up, boom. You partake of that opening. That's a shift of track, exploration, the partaking of that opening right there. Those are shifts. And so be able to be in that state where we can take advantage is not a great word because I'm going to take advantage of so-and-so or this situation. But if there's a harmony that's possible, we can take advantage of being a part of that harmony. And in those sense, I use the term partake. There's a potential harmony going on. And I see it, but somehow it doesn't materialize as fully as it could because my partaking of it is what brings it into a more fullness of being. So there is a variety of different ways of looking at, the sense of a track. I'm going to go this way until I go that way. I'm going to go that way until I go that way. I may practice going that way and that way, but if I can, well, I'm going to go this way until I go this way. I'm going to go this way until I go this way, but I can also start to work on boom, boom. And initially, that might be a little on what we call the confusing side, because I'm still learning about this. Good. All of a sudden, I go this way. Well, I'm going, well, I haven't finished that yet. Okay, there is that feeling. On the other hand, okay, boom. Go this way. Oh, I can go back that way. And so that track can become this or that, or that or that. Or we can induce another direction. Or I can shift tracks and just be still. And that stillness can go into motion, rotation, or back to itself. And so a lot of what we do, for example, with the staff work, I find the staff work is really good for me because, it's constantly changing tracks. We go this way, we go this way, we go this way, go this way, that way, that way, that way. Those are basic directions. You're going to have your 8 directions, or Sensei would say 1, 4, 3, 8. He had his, but to be able to shift, the one goes out to the many, but the many goes back into the one. All right? You enter until you have to turn, or you turn until you get a chance to enter. And so that particular place right there, if I kind of go, okay, all this activity, but the background of that is, it's what Sensei might call self, I guess. It's very fluid. When you go that way, you go that way until you go that way. When you go this way, you go that way until you go the other way. Or when you're in the movement, you do that until you shift in the track of being very still. And when I'm doing that, I can't get too caught up in a lot of negativity right now. Because the self is fluid, is, in some sense, just to perceive these different changes and not just look at them and study them, but boom, boom, being a part of them. Boom. There's a harmony here, but it doesn't seem to come fully into being. Why? Because I'm a part of that harmony if I'm just studying it. In fact, if I just study it, the harmony has so much energy. Sometimes it sort of backlashes to going, like that. So just, again, being very easy, which is another way of saying very fluid. You can follow that or go that way. Okay, so let's move into the other room. Oops. And here we are. Guess that's, we've got our lens, and when I'm a bit more organized, we have the lighting all set up. I'll just use this. I think it gives the just a clearer picture, okay? So we're just going to explore that for a bit, okay? There's movement this way until there's movement that way. Or there's movement this way until there's movement that way. Or there's movement this way until there's movement that way. I'd like you to just try that a bit. So I'm using kind of a cross pattern right there. This way, this way. Right, left, right are good. Okay, if I'm here, I'm going to go this way until I go the other way. I'm going to go this way until I decide to go a different direction. Every motion is with a clear intention that's very flexible. That's very clear, and that's very clear. You can see, I'm not using, just walking. I'm going to go that way until I decide to go this way. I'm going to go this way until I decide to go another direction or turn. Okay? So I'd just like you to just move a little bit and explore what's going on when we're able to make those shifts, go from this track to that track. So we're going to the staff work in a little bit, but I'm going to so this way, that way. So I want you to move. Okay, let's kind of touch base here a bit. So what I'm asking you to do, you're going, and you're able to kind of shift tracks. See, if I'm wandering this way, it doesn't mean I'm going to wander in a different direction. It means I have a purpose going that way, which can freely shift. Okay. Okay. Anybody with observation or question on that? Anybody? Yes.
I noticed that I almost immediately start wondering, am I doing this right?
Yeah, in other words, you're just in the moment with it. If I start to kind of, in some sense, get the mental dialogue going, am I doing this right? No, it's going to go that way until I decide to go this way. Now that's different than going, I can't decide between this or that. I tried this. Oh, no, this is what I want. You see what I mean? There's actually a purpose to every track, but you're able to go that way or that way, or that way or that way. Okay? So, yeah, in other words, you stop thinking about whether you're doing it right, because the whole thing is just being able to go that way until you can go that way. All right? So, okay. I like it because in a lot of ways I'm thinking I can be consumed by self-doubt. The whole table can be set for incredible peace and enlightenment, and then I get in there in this doubting, noisy mind place, and all of a sudden I can't partake of it. Okay? So yeah, anybody else with a question or observation? Okay, now maybe going this way. I'm using see, I'm going to go this way until I go that way. I'm going to go that way until I go that way. Now, I'm using no, everything's that way until it goes that way. Until it goes that way, until it goes that way, until it goes that way. So the movements of Aikido are kind of based upon, you don't have to be a champion gymnast to do them. It's just, okay, I'm going to go that way until I go this way. I'm going to go this way until I go this way. boom, boom. So I'm holding something now, which can be a right here. Boom, 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 boom. In fact, the staff is a good way of looking at where it points to this track until it points to that track, that track, that track, that track, that track. Boom. So I'd like you to just hold something. We're going to go this way until we go another way. We're going to go this way until we go another way. So use the tool. I have a couple other ones you may shift, but for now, okay. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, let's check in a little bit. So, you have you can keep going this way. In other words, you got a pretty good track going right here, okay? Enjoy it. But it's kind of fun to be able to explore that, or that, or that, or that, or that, right? And anybody with an observation or question? Switching tracks. Switching tracks.
Just that I have a Joe, but I don't have a short staff like you did. But I have a coffee mug.
Okay.
I'm used to following coffee, so hey,
Yeah, it's interesting that it appears like what we're doing to some degree is following the staff or the coffee cup, but really what it is prior to that moving, there is an intention moving. And I'm saying I have to strain or force to follow that track. And I can switch tracks. Or there is a track called stillness. And so I can go this way or switch to the stillness track.
I feel a bit like a donkey with a carrot dangling in front of it, except I'm the one dangling the carrot.
Well, you're both. You're both the donkey looking at the carrot, and you're also he or she who can direct can point the carrot in this direction or that direction. All right, so you're both. But a lot of times what happens is that we get caught up being the donkey, and we don't realize we're also the person that's controlling where the carrot's pointing. You can have a lot of fun, once you realize, because everything starts to lighten up, free up, okay? Which I enjoy. All I'm doing is focusing on the coronavirus. Well, okay, if I was a scientist, and testing for a vaccine, then that's what I should do. But if that's my whole purpose in life, then I'm pretty undeveloped. And just be able to enjoy other things. And it's real difficult sometimes during this period because we're so limited in what we can do, but the ability to be able to boom, boom. And sometimes what's interesting is that's a quick in the moment. And a lot of times when you have that, you actually get something as opposed to thinking about it forever. Probably as a writer, if you have a little bit of writer's block, doesn't help you, but all of a sudden you go, oh, that's what, something opens up, doesn't it? Take you out of that.
Yeah, you have to switch tracks in some way, shape, or form.
That's correct. You switch tracks. Okay, and writer's block is a place that we all, I mean, just Aikidoists, you just get caught up in a rut. The Dao Sensei said the joke at Hompu Dojo in the old days was you get Godan, 5th degree black belt. Godan meant go down. Because in those days, 5th Dan in those days was a real high rank. And so most people would actually train hard and get there. And then they would deteriorate. And there were people that would take that rank and they would start to continue because there was another track past just developing your technique to a certain level. But if that's all you did, you're going to go down, go down, go down. Because you can't sustain development on that level. But there are other tracks. Oh, there's another track and another track and another track. Those people didn't go down at Godon. Because I always thought that was kind of a joke. That was kind of funny. Godon, go down, you know what I mean? So yeah, if you're on a
Bilingual
limited,
puns are the best.
if you're on a limited track, you ride it for a while, but it tends to kind of go down. Okay, all right. Whereas if you say, this is really good, but wow, there's something else is opening up here, here, here. Okay, so within that, that's what we're exploring a little bit. Anybody else with a question or observation on this one? Just the ability to you're going that way till you go that way. Okay. Now, a lot of times we have forms like I'm going to enter, now I'm going to turn. But even right there, you go this way until you go that way. You go this way until you go that way. You go forward until you have to change, maybe turn. You go forward till maybe you have to retreat a little bit, but then again, you go forward and you turn. All right? If you watch Sensei's movement, it's so natural. I mean, the effects of his movement sometimes you go, wow. But if you watch his stuff on video, he moves very much. He doesn't move like he's a he's trained harder. He's moving so naturally. He's moving so naturally. Okay? So that's what we're exploring a little bit right here. Now, there are things that for example, I'm going to shift back to spotlight, okay? Now we do the fire, water, water, fire changes. And initially I'm learning a move, and I'm learning a move, and I'm learning a move. Okay, but here, for example, I just shifted tracks. I went from the change in one direction to a figure 8, which is another track. Now from figure 8, can I switch back or switch sides? Figure 8, boom. So, initially, yes, I do have to learn the movement. Then I get better out there at the movement. And then I go, oh, what am I supposed to do next? That's kind of like writer's cramp. Go this way, go that way, go that way. Keep going that way until you shift. Or you keep going that direction. Boom, boom. So if we can kind of free up the motion. I want you to just whatever it is, watch where you're going. This can kind of get kind of crazy. All right, so be easy with it. I'm going to go that way until I go that way. Go that way until I go that way. Go that way until I go that way. Go that way until I go that way, that way, that way. And so we want to build into that area where we're in the movement in the moment, but we can shift tracks if we need to, or we can keep that track going, and then we can shift, and keep that track going, and then we can shift. Boom. Okay? The ability to change tracks. Change tracks. Okay? So start moving in whatever way. Start moving in whatever way. Start moving in whatever way. Okay, anybody, anybody with an observation or a question on that one? It's just another way of looking at it. A lot of times I can go that way until I go that way. I can go that way until I go that way. I can go that way until I go that way, until I go that way, until I go that way, until I go that way. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Anybody? Question, observation? No? Yes, David.
My observation is mostly there are some days when the movement, it just flows easily.
Yeah.
And there's some days like today where I almost immediately start feeling my muscles getting sore and tired and tensing up. And I just observe that it's really different from one day to the next, and I can't expect it to be like it was yesterday.
Well, there's another way of looking at it. Your way is valid. This is just a suggestion, okay? One day, I'm outside with a basketball and a hoop, and I'm shooting at the hoop, right? And my observation was that doesn't change. What does change is me. Okay? In other words, the hoop is a constant. What does change is me, my own balance with myself, my own sense of who I am. Okay, so I have good days and bad days, but the hoop doesn't change. Okay, now, for example, here, this is my thesis for the class. And it's just like a thesis, just something we're going to develop, and this you can say yay or nay on it. But that place is always in the same place. What does change is me. I wake up, my body's a little stiffer. The changes don't happen so easily. I'm thinking about it, or I overdid something yesterday, my legs ache. Okay? The place itself is constantly there. And it's always in the same place, just like the hoop is in the same place. Okay? What does move is me. So if I can say, okay, whatever it is there is in the same place, and I'm it's me that's moving. Okay? So the question then is, what level of me is there along with that place? So we go that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. Well, it's a more transparent me. If I'm thinking about doing it better, or if I'm doing it right, I get in my own way. That doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. I do, But when we're here, boom, 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 boom. Okay? It's fluid. That's not to say so much I'm doing the movement fluid, but what that boom, 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 so, and when I'm in that space, a more open, the ability to be focused absolutely in that direction, and then just be focused in another direction. I like that place. So I try to spend time. In fact, if I'm in a lesser, I'll pick this up and just start to move around. So I shift out of, or into some level of this, okay? But yeah, you will run into your days when the stuff is harder, okay? So anyway, a guy named Russ Freeman, he was a composer, piano player. He was also business manager for Chet Baker. And he made an interesting statement. Baker didn't know what key he was playing in. It was all just being able to just move with the music, okay? And his particular comment was, if he was having a bad day, he had nothing to fall back on. It was a bad day, right? In other words, he didn't say, okay, it was that chord, so I play these notes. It was really bad. So there's motion, you know, some days it's a good day, some days are not so good day. But the place itself is always where it is. And so after a while, if I'm kind of in a day where everything's kind of tighter, or I'm in a much more judgmental closed state, you know, I pick this up, and, you know, all of a sudden, if I can start to move my actual location, I wanted to move back towards that level of me, which is more in this state. The state doesn't move. What does move is me, okay? So that's my thesis, okay? Anybody else, question or comment on that one? Okay. So we're just, so this is a change, which can go into that track or that track. Or it can go that track, that track, that track, that track. So each of those changes that and that, that and that, that and that, that and that. See, if I'm stuck here, what, that and that, that, either or, but I can go both in, both in. Both choices are, from there, boom, 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 boom. That's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tracks. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom, boom, boom. 1, 2. 1, 2. Now that one, for example, looks like 1, but it's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom. 4. Boom. So I want you to just sort of move if you can, and see if you can just get that way and that way. Go that way and that way. Boom. Oh, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. Okay, so I'd like you to just experiment in motion, moving from track to track. Okay, let's check in. Actually, I did the exact opposite of what I was supposed to do, but a movement, a movement, a movement, a movement, a movement, a movement. See, those are tracks. It's kind of an open, easy still state that motion comes out of. It goes back to it. Easy. still place, and there's motion. Boom, boom. So that's already 2 tracks. Now, the stillness, the motion has sub-tracks to it. It's about 12 or 13 tracks. Okay, that's what I work on. If somebody comes to grab, here I might miss here, but I shift tracks, and then I go this way. If I'm going to shift tracks, go that way. It still looks like a kategori ikkyo, but you know, boom, 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 boom. So in that zone that we were mentioning it last time, this is what I consider the wow place. The wow place, where you're right on point, you're creative, focused, and you're very flexible and fluid. And I like hanging out there, whether it's with an instrument or a staff or a sword or give me a basketball, which I'm not doing at all right now. Okay, good. Okay, so anybody, what do you notice? Who is the person as you are starting to hang out in that place, that zone? Who is that person? How do you feel? And you may say, well, I feel kind of like, oh, I'm confused. That's okay. Honesty is important. Anybody? Cliff, anybody? Anything?
I think I have nothing profound to say right at the moment.
That's good.
But
This is what we call a very easy sort of positive, not empty in a bad way, but you're empty. Yeah, that's what it's like. That's what it's like. Yeah. Yeah. If
I
I'm
have
looking,
been, part of my brain is working on the story that I was working on prior
Yeah.
to this class, and I'm getting ideas for it while
Yeah.
I'm doing other things.
yeah. I mean, sometimes, if you're a writer, you got to do something else. If all you do is stare at your computer, your keyboard, you're locked. Sometimes you got to go out and just sort of switch tracks, and it starts the juices flowing. Creative people know that. They don't necessarily bludgeon themselves to death. Sometimes you do that. But you go, okay, I got to really sit down here and blah, blah. But on the other hand, part of the fun of creation is being in this space. Anybody else? Anything you notice or anything you'd like to kind of share a bit? See that particular motion, 1, 2, 3. It looks like one move, but it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what's interesting is since you try to make that one move faster, the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 is faster. Instead of making this movement harder, the 1, 2, 3, boom, actually integrates into a much more dynamic movement. Somebody that's really good has sub-movements. Or there's a track, but then again, each of those sub-tracks are very fluid. And they're somewhat subject to what's going on out there because you see a form, but within that form, there are sub-tracks. There's many different ways you could frame that one form by altering the sub-tracks. You're still doing the form, it's just you're not locked. So that motion, boom, boom, boom. That motion, boom, 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 boom. All right? So what I try to do is go into that space where I'm kind of very clear and able to focus that way, but I'm also able to shift tracks. And what I find is in that particular space, that's where creativity is. Okay? Anybody with a question or comment on that one? Okay. let's see. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Now this is kind of a ready position, but you know, you get your triangle, which is your point gaze, proper grip. But you're already, you know, I want to be in that space a bit. So, you know, you're kind of feeling, you can be very still, but you also kind of feel the waves that are going on in that space. Boom, boom, or the spirals that are going on in that space. So, you know, I'm looking, studying, that's something that you do to get started. But you kind of notice after a while, movements just sort of happen. Boom, 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 boom. Movements just happening. Boom. And somebody says, what did you just do? Well, I think I went something like this. You can reconstruct it, but easier to go back in that space. It was a different move, that was a different move, that was a different move, that was a different move. And each of those has 1, 2, 3, 4. Something, but this motion has a couple of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Has, and I can boom, 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 boom. I can phrase those subtracts. I can lengthen some of them, collapse some of them, almost let one disappear, boom, still there, but it's like we went from 1 to 3, boom. There was still 2 there, it was just more invisible. So there's a lot of fun you can have when you start to kind of hang out what I would call the wow dimension of yourself. Boom. Boom is a wow place, which means there's a wow level of you in that space. See, self-defense wise, I'm walking around, somebody, boom, and then like boom, low and wake up and boom. You'd be surprised that that level of fluidity, if you needed boom to come in and, you know, defend yourself, bah, that's necessary. So, just a simple move like that, boom. There's this track, there's this track. Instead of going like that, you go one shift tracks. The up and the down. The up and the down. Okay, here, boom, joint back, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. I'm aware on a bad day I start to do things like that, or there's too much action going on up here to allow the clarity of that track to that track. Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. So start to move again. See if we can start to get that feeling. This openness and focus really in the same, in that sort of necessary balance. You'd be cool being right here, and you'd be cool shifting tracks. See, if I feel like I have to shift tracks, I'm set. I gotta get out of this bad day, which of course creates the day to kind of freeze. But if we could almost go, you know, bad day, boom, 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 boom. Or open day, boom, 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 boom. Freer day, boom, 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 boom. Fair day, oh. Fair day going to good day. Boom, 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 boom. Oh. Good day on the way to maybe a really good, almost great day. Ooh, 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 ooh. All right. The great day is kind of when you're sort of hitting that wow place. And then there's a wow level of you right here. You got your ground. You got your center. You got your attention that go that way, or it can shift. Or it can shift, or shift, or shift, or shift. The right, left changes hand. They just happen because you're in that space, that level of you. Right? Well, since there's term for it, I mean, I'm not sure I won't speak for him. He talked about ame no ukihashi. Because when we're in that level of ourselves, that wow place, and that, correspondingly, there's a wow level of us, that would be about my only sense of what he might have meant by the floating bridge of heaven, because heaven is a very, very fluid experience. You're grounded there. And that, that place, my thought, that doesn't move. What does move is me. I, in different levels of me. But as I start to get easier with things, and I start to, be able to boom, 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 boom. And the movements start to, for example, this is a track. We can shift from that track to that track. We can shift from that track to 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 that track. Right? You can switch from, again, fly like, strike like thunder, or strike like thunder. Boom. So there are different things that Sensei talks about, each of them. Either very easy right here, or boom, you can shift into motion, and that motion can be this way, boom, it can be that way. And where is that wow place, and who is that wow level of us that is correspondingly there? Whoa. Okay. Anybody with a question or comment on that one? Anybody? Cliff? Okay, you're good. All right. Yeah. See, even when I'm here, I'm not terribly doing a lot, but see, it's almost like that place itself. Breathes. So okay, I'm doing this movement. On a bad day, I'm going to get tired, I'm going to get bored. But or that place is a heartbeat. So breath, heartbeat. And from that particular balance place, you find the various things naturally, sort of almost like the tracks. And all those movements come out of the stillness, go back to the stillness. Or conversely, see, I'm not just waving my arms, or I'm not just squatting with my arms. Especially as you get older, I'm just going to wear myself out working out. But if I'm in this zone, the body feels looser, freer. It's supported by energy that wants to flow and support whatever movement or whatever change of track we are. And you see, the I isn't an I anymore. It's more I on its way to self. Self is very fluid. The self can focus on there and also shift and change and boom, 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 boom. Okay? One of the most famous swordsmen in Japanese history is a man named Sasaki Kojiro. And he's famous for having lost a duel with Miyamoto Musashi on Ganryu Island. And Kojiro was somebody, has his own story. And it's interesting that he is memorable because he lost that duel. But my own, if I watch the stuff, there's many films around that. I'm kind of a Kojiro fan. It's very interesting. Of the two of them, I think he was the better swordsman. And Kojiro, one thing he did, he had an extra long sword. In fact, it was so long, he couldn't draw it this way. He would swing it over his back and he would have to draw it this way. And the most famous is the Toshiro Mifune samurai trilogy about Miyamoto Musashi. And an actor named Koji Tsurata plays Sasaki Kojiro. Interesting that the same actor played Yamuri Kyoshiro, Full Moon Swordsman. And they're both similar, okay? And Kojiro studied the movement of swallows. Well, swallows could go this way, then they could shift tracks. And so he developed what he called the swallow cut. The swallow cut, the swallow turn. And so he had this extra long sword that he could wield with that unpredictability and speed. See, it's not that the swallow goes fast this way. The swallow can just change directions. And so I think when Kojiro studied the movement of the swallow, he started to tune into that more wow self place. In other words, you go that way, you go that way. That way, you go that way, go that way. And Musashi supposedly beat Kojiro on that island because he carved a wooden sword that was longer than Kojiro's blade. And what he did do is he evaded that change, jumped in the air, and crushed Kojiro's skull with the extra long bokken. You can kill with a bokken. And that was how he beat Kojiro. And so, in some sense, Kojiro's thing was on unpredictable. He was unpredictable. It was based on a turn. Just like the swallow goes that way, it goes that way. If I look at O-sensei, his movements are very much like that. He would say probably the movements come out of that creative void where you're right there, but you can also shift tracks. And so the level of us in there is very, very open, free, and has the ability to focus and change. And when we're in that state, that's that raw level of ourselves. We see relationships that other people miss, okay? I think Kojiro was a genius. And I think Musashi was really right up there, but I almost get the feeling that even though he lost, Kojiro was better, okay? Anyway, we're gonna move into the other room. So, okay. Anyway, So we're that sort of, we call that wow level. Okay. Sometimes it's hard, because I have this idea about what it is. I must. So it's tricky because, maybe my idea, well, if I was O Sensei, I'd be this, that, this, that. Well, maybe I should stop thinking that way. Any of us who reaches that level is probably going to be very individual anyway. So am I going to dodge bullets or do this or that? Maybe I do other things. Okay? So anybody with a question or observation on the class? I'm just kind of curious because, it's just, to me, that's my motivation for doing Aikido. Because I get to sort of hang out there somewhat. Now, sometimes when you're teaching a regular class, you're supposed to teach all these forms and everything. But that level, Sensei had his code words for it: stand on the floating bridge of heaven, things like that. But I suspect that was pretty much what he was alluding to. Okay? Anybody with a question or comment on that? Yeah.
Something I kind of struggle with, because, I did Aikido when I was young, and then I took time off and came back to it. Then I had twins and took time off and came back to it. Yeah. I'll never reach, that level. I mean, like Godon or the equivalent understanding of the art, right? So I struggle because eventually I'll die of old age. So I struggle with, trying to bring meaning to my practice at whatever level I'm at the moment.
Okay.
Right? And so the one thing I can work on is improving my flow, right?
Okay.
And improving my getting into the groove, getting into that zone. And
Okay.
I think that zone is accessible at almost any level,
Yes.
at some level. And so I'm not going to be Musashi or O Sensei or, even someone like Koichi Toei Sensei. I'm never going to do that, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable on some level to work on this, even if it's not like sort of goal oriented. Does that make sense?
Well, the point of it though, I used the term Godon. You'd be surprised, from a certain viewpoint these days, everybody is a Godon. The number of people at that rank, when the Do Sensei said it, that was a very select group of people. Okay, and in some sense, these days, you'd probably see something like 8th Dan. Okay, so the number, it's a little bit like
whichever number, right? I'm not going to make Godon or 8 Dan.
Yeah, and depth of understanding is very tricky. Okay, because by the time you achieve what you would consider the actual understanding at a Godon level, you might have created a prison for yourself in doing that. I think that was what Nado Sensei was saying. Because, the prison was just technical and physical ability. And they didn't make that leap into energy or into the other dimensions of themselves. So he was talking about this one guy, he just really suffered because he realized when he got to Godon, he wasn't getting any better. And he realized the only other place to go was that way. So that was the joke, right? Godon, go down. So, what you kind of realize at some point, is that the actual sense of it, the people that are really good they don't measure themselves that way. It's really like with Ano Sensei, for example. If you talk to him, I think Linda Holiday Sensei went to visit him, it was a while back. Okay, she didn't go this year because of the travel restrictions. So this was sometime late last year. And he said, my body is a lot weaker, but my spirit is stronger. And so, if you compare his ability, like when I was first there, Ano Sensei, along with Yanase Sensei, they took most of the ukemi for Hikizuchi Sensei. One was a seventh, that was Ano Sensei, he's eighth now, okay? And Yanase Sensei was a sixth. Those were high ranks, okay? And so, what happens is, what would I do? Occasionally, he would throw everybody in the class, so I get one throw right, one throw left. And then what happens is that, he stays at my parents' house when he's visiting Northern California in May of 1974. He brings this guy with him, who's kind of, he's not his bodyguard. You don't think that way, but it's more like his representative from the dojo, who's supposed to take the falls. But this guy starts bloodying people up. And so Hikizuchi Sensei gets kind of pissed at him. And so guess who winds up getting to the head of the line? I'd have to drive him somewhere, park, and get there really fast to be okay. And then I go back to Japan. And, there were a couple of times, when I was standing there, and it was demos at shrines and stuff. And Ano Sensei and Yanase Sensei were right there, right? I didn't even bow in. And then Hikizuchi Sensei would turn around, realize I hadn't bowed in, he would point his finger, and I was standing with the rest of the crowd, like, get your butt in here. And I remember that one because it was like, there were no tatami, it was a hardwood floor in a shrine. And I remember, like attacking him, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, this is Kotegaishi, high fall. And what was interesting was I fell down and the hardwood felt like feathers. There was a whole different dynamic or dimension there. You see? But what happens a little bit is that, we tend to kind of, put a number there, like fifth or whatever it is. And really what this is about, it's about development. It's about development. Some of the stuff you got to take for, it's a grain of salt. You have your good days, you're in favor, and you're out of favor. But Hikizuchi Sensei would tell me, you're picking this up much faster than even Yanase or Ano is doing right now. I go, sure I am. And maybe he was right. Because there was that zone. It wasn't mean my technique was as good as theirs, so that was not correct. But there was an area where maybe the actual thing, the ability to partake of something was very open at that time. And then that lasted for about 3 months, and I came back because partially I was going to have a nervous breakdown if I stayed there, because being that open sometimes is scary. It is scary. And so, there's an area though where if you look at what we're after development. And, it's like Carlos Castaneda, stories about Don Juan and doing all this magical stuff. And then Castaneda, what was Castaneda? He was a best-selling author. I don't know that he could have done the stuff Don Juan did, but he says, my writing is my sorcery. So your writing or your music probably would be, the number doesn't matter. You respect somebody, who's gotten a, that usually means there's a lot of dedication. Unfortunately, also there's a lot of politics. Toshima Sensei died his 6th time. Now he was a couple of levels above that, but the politics were not good for him. Okay? Yanasa Sensei is still the 7th. Why? Politics weren't good for him. Ano Sensei got promoted, politics were good. Partially because of him. He was just somebody that was just able to stay very open, and a lot of other people couldn't.
I get the feeling Ano Sensei just gets along with everyone.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's kind of his practice. Yes, David?
Audrey has a question or a comment.
Yeah, Audrey, question or comment? Yes, hi. Hello? You may need to unmute. Hello?
She's got her hand up.
Okay.
Sorry, still trying to figure out how to unmute.
Okay.
My comment was that, one of the things we say here in the Salt Lake Dojo that to my students is, the Shodans long to be white belts and the white belts long to be Shodans, because there's a certain innocence of practice that takes you to places when you don't have too much knowledge.
Yeah.
Have you had that experience? And so
Yeah.
at a certain level, you kind of have to unlearn all your knowledge to be able to enter these non-traditional places.
Yeah, that's basic Bruce Lee. Because what happens is that when we're learning, we systematize. And there was a book that his widow wrote. It was a biography of him. And he fought this guy that the Chinese community sent because he was teaching non-Chinese. And the agreement was, if he won, he could continue teaching non-Chinese. If he lost, he'd have to stop. And of course, Bruce Lee won. But what his wife said was he began to kind of question, a lot of his training, because this guy, after a while, Bruce Lee was Wing Chun, which is you punch, 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 trap, punch. Or you go this way, you go around their strike, boom. They have those dummies with those legs sticking out, and you just practice, bah, 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 right? It's all about tactile. And he just said that what Bruce Lee realized he did is the guy just lowered his head because he couldn't do anything. And Bruce Lee kept on hitting him in the head. And so finally he changed traps and took him down. But he just kept on going bang, 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 and just hitting the guy on the head, punch after punch. He didn't adapt. And so she said, he questioned, he began to look at, like boom, being a little, having other tools, other tracks. Ultimately, I mean, you keep, to some degree, you realize what you really want is the ability to shift into almost any track. In one of his films, I think it was deliberate, he's fighting Chuck Norris at the Rome Coliseum, and Norris is the American karate champion, right? And so he's getting his butt kicked. So finally, he kind of shifts into Muhammad Ali. He changes tracks. He goes, instead of traditional kung fu scoring away, he starts dancing, floating like a butterfly, boom. And of course, that's Bruce Lee's film, right? So of course he wins, but that area right there where, okay, this is classical, this isn't. Both are good, and both, you just kind of, I mean, you just want to be a boxer. He wasn't a boxer. He was Ali, a genius. He saw genius there. That's something that a lot of times one recognizes another somewhere. Okay? So within that, that's correct. A lot of times the Shodans want to go back to that original innocence and purity. And then, of course, the white belts want the number, right? I mean, that was a big deal. I mean, Linda Holiday Sensei and I, we were both Shodan candidates, but we weren't Shodan when we were, at least when I was there. I got promoted right before I left. And I remember Ano Sensei came by just before I left, and he gave me a black belt. It was a present. And I didn't wear it, and I put it on there once when he gave it to me, but I never wore it, my first day. My next day I go back there, all of a sudden I'm golden because Hikizuchi Sensei stayed at my parents' house and I was uke for him, and I drove him almost everywhere that month. And so all of a sudden, everything, I have this golden aura, people that, this one guy, in the morning, he was about a son. He was really good, but he taught kids. And so I do kokyu-ho with him. And I was like, yeah. And so all of a sudden, I go like that, and he's down. And I said, yeah, you shouldn't do that. He said, no, I'm not. This other guy, this named Higashi, who was about a Nidan, but, politics, he should have been about a fourth Dan. He was really good. And so, I'm training with him, and, you kind of, and he's moving, I'm doing this. I was like, no. He says, no, this is real. See, I didn't understand it. Because I figured, a struggle, I was going to get stronger that way. But it's like, no, there's a different gear. You're on a different track now. And he looks at, because this guy was really good. I mean, he wasn't one of the senior teachers, but Tojima Sensei really respected him, which is like, okay, yeah, this guy's really got something. He looks at me, he says, we're about equal now. I'm like, really? My old tapes, I'm going to do this. He said, no, you're past that now. I went, oh. It's really funny. Because sometimes we think, no, we hold on to this limited level of ourselves. In conversation, you can say, hey, I'm hot, I am hot shit now. Boom. You don't want to do that either. You just want to some degree, realize, oh, yeah, things are different. Because it's a different level of me. Therefore, that I'm a lens and the world appears different. And, there's that little level of us that goes, no. And that really is constantly there, but you wild thing, okay, now you base your sense of things more upon your in the moment sense feel of who you are. And you get feedback from the world. Okay? So yeah, a lot of times you find that. Ano Sensei told me the same thing once. He's an 8th degree black belt time. He was the chief instructor of the Shingu Dojo after Hikizuchi Sensei had passed on. And he just comes up to me and says, Jack, I want to give it all away. Everything for me now is out breath. Everything I know, I just want to clear. Yeah, that's him. Ideally, that's all of us, right? And, I think his contention was, that, it's like, yeah, don't pay a lot of attention to the number, or the title. You and I have a relationship that goes way back. And that's what's important. That there was kind of a real sense of connection or a sense of purity to that relationship. Almost 50 years ago. And that was still there. And that was that was what he valued. That's what he valued, not the number. Yeah, he got a lot of that because he's able to survive the politics, and he knew that. Now, in his case, it wasn't just surviving the politics. He actually took very difficult things and continued to grow. All right, and one of the things is that sometimes you have to shift from a judgmental track into an openness or an accepting, receptive. And he could do that. Yeah, a couple of the other teachers, they had trouble with it. Tojima Sensei and Yanase Sensei. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I really respect Ano Sensei, is because he's able to kind of, in some sense, stay humble. Okay. Anybody else with a question or comment on that one? So what I tried to do a little bit, yesterday, Nado Sensei and I, we had this his conference. And most of the time, there's a kind of an I as a character in, a situation, a world or whatever it is. And there's also self, which is ever present in both situation and character. But the self is self. And so we tend to kind of lock into the character, and also, the world tends to push us. So by shifting our consciousness from character, that exists, you try to get a balance with it. One thing about getting a black belt, you gotta learn the moves, okay? But there's also a sense where self is ever present. And as we go a little bit closer, to the wow dimension or the wow self, is fluid. It can be very focused, or it can be very still. It takes whatever track is there and stay focused and lined up to it, but it can also boom. So that to me, there's I. But again, the I is a lot about just whittling away that shell and getting back more towards the original of us, which is much more that wow level of self. And therefore, we're able to access that wow dimension. The basketball analogy I think is good because the hoop doesn't change. What does shift from moment to moment is me. And so, that part of it is, the actual, we see, the Ame no Ukihashi place. We've all touched it. That's the other thing. It's not an impossible. It's like, okay, only O-sensei. Well, maybe O-sensei at that level that he touched it. But I think it's available to all of us. And what happens to us is, we move and then we go, we start to look for it, which also pushes it away. As opposed to, one of the most important tracks is just kind of stillness, calm. Because if I'm here, then all of a sudden there's motion, I can shift into that motion, or conversely, shift back into the stillness, calm, and there's motion. There's motion, 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 and there's that stillness, calm. I mean, I can meditate for a while and actually kind of hypnotize myself to where I'm just, just sort of asleep in that. But the movement we have is really getting that balance. You want the stillness in motion. Boom, boom. See, if I'm going this way, that way, I'm setting to move, but I go that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. Boom. And having that in your motion, if you're going to do an Aikido move, see, the whole thing is the techniques are supposed to get us there. But a lot of times, we focus so much on the outer of the techniques, on the number, the rank, or whatever it is, that we miss it. Okay? Anyway, any questions before we break? Again, we'll be meeting outside tomorrow, which is a good way because, it was supposed to possibly rain. Okay? And a good way of making it rain is to schedule something outside. That's the truth of it, It's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to wash my car. It's supposed to rain this weekend. That sort of thing, right? So anyway, what we're going to do is it'll be 11:30 start time. If it is raining, then what we'll do is we'll announce it. We'll kind of go somewhere else where I can plug in inside, okay, and do the class. I can get back here and start an indoors class virtually in about 20 minutes. So we will do the class. Ideally, because we haven't been outside for a while, it'd be nice to kind of do the outdoors training. Okay, so hope to see you all then, or either virtually or out there. So thank you very much.